Tallboys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs. High Gear Success. From helping racers get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear. Miracle Works Detailing. No cars too dirty. And by Cycle Mart, your motorcycle parts store. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's time. It's time for episode 67 of Tallboys and Trackmasters. Here we go. That fridge is starting to get these things to be a lot like that meme you see. Like, can you imagine drinking this at 3 in the morning?
Oh, it keeps them pretty cold.
It does.
Yeah,
it does a good
frosty
job.
almost.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We are excited to be back. And hey, congratulations, buddy. Sorry, ladies. He's a married man now.
Yeah, it's too late.
How was your time off and your honeymoon?
It was great. Spent some time down at New River Gorge. Hiked and biked like 30 miles. Say biked. I did get on a mountain bike.
Oh,
My top speed was probably like between 25 and 30 miles an hour. And it just felt good to get out and hit some terrain again on two wheels.
Try the hardware out a little bit. Try
Yeah.
the wrist, right?
I mean, everything's coming along pretty good.
Good.
All things considered. So, hopefully that keeps trending in the right direction and get back at it.
That's what we want to hear, man. Well, like I said, congratulations. Excited for you and Shiloh. And
We can do a Wives of TNT.
legit. We can do a Wives of TNT episode. We'll have to get that on the docket for sure. Well, we hope you all are doing well out there. We have had a lot of industry news, shakeups, everything you can think of. And we actually did an episode kind of like this a while back called Smorgasbord. That's why this one's Smorgasbord 2, Electric Boogaloo. But we hope to get you all caught up on all this news because, man, there is a lot of cool bikes out coming out, specs on things, maybe some refreshes and revisions of some old tech.
And for once, it's not just a bunch of Chinese bikes.
Yeah. Well, we do have one Chinese bike to talk about.
Yeah,
But
they're for probably a 6-month period. It was, this new bike from company that you've never heard of before is being released. It's like,
yeah.
okay,
The same one that makes your microwave is making a bike now.
Yeah, cool. My Hisense 400.
Well, let's get right into it, my friend. So, a little bit of local stuff here. We just had Tread Lightly Day, and we're going to do a recap of Tread Lightly Day for our area. Kind of talked about this on the last episode with Jack, and everything really did go to plan and worked out really well for our spot, which is Ford Hill, aka 19/8. And we got a lot of pretty cool pictures and stuff I'll roll through, and then we'll get into the nitty and gritty of how everything went. But first up, here's El Presidente Nick Hall and my dad
I was
Bill.
gonna say, who's that weird looking dude in the back?
Yeah, he's back there. There's Dad and Dan the rescue man rescuing a tire from over the hillside. We have Mr. Tyler Vincent and Tom King getting some trash and taking it up to the trailer. There's Joey Ellis and myself and
Nice.
Fred and Dan down over the hill. Love Joey. He always shows up and shows out for FDSR events.
Absolutely.
Here's Kelly Moore. Kelly was our Department of Environmental Protection liaison and the REAP representative. and she brought us up a 8x16 dump trailer, which we filled very, very quickly.
Yeah, there was a lot of garbage up
Man, there
there.
was. There's Tyler's boy Blake on Jack's 40-inch Milestar Patagonia, and we got the opportunity to try Jack's Warren winch out, hashtag Warren, and winch a old safe that was over the hillside up. So got to use a snatch block and some different straps. That was pretty cool to be able to accomplish that. There's Dan. He was helping getting it up to the top there. There's a couple more we got. There's kind of the end trail right up before you get to Hockenberry Hollow. There was a lot of beer bottles and stuff there on that side.
Yeah, no surprise.
So, the main issue up on that the trail and what we were really trying to clean up was that wood pile right there. It looked like somebody had torn down a deck with some fence work on the outside of it. But you can see just that deck itself and just a few bags of trash that were there along with a concrete fence post. That's an 8x16 dump trailer. It was pretty much halfway full just getting that deck picked up there. And this was also a pain in the butt. This was there was like 6 bags of shingles right there kind of buried in the ground. But, we had 15 representatives from FDSR. We had Jack Sloan and Dave Hamrick from West Virginia Off-Road, along with a man named Hank and his family. Hank was actually the 4th checkpoint on the last 24 hours of Appalachia rally.
That's cool.
So that was cool getting to talk to him a little bit. And he was like, "You look familiar." I said, "You look familiar too." He's like, "I saw you in the middle of the night on that big Africa Twin." I was like, "Yep, that was me." So kind of a cool small world. But when it was all said and done, that 8x16 dump trailer was filled up within 2 hours. We picked up 1.7 tons, which worked out to be 3,463 pounds. Now, that seems like a lot, and it is a lot. But the really frustrating part for me is we didn't make a dent in that up there, man. I,
That's kind of what I figured.
I mean, it's just appalling how bad that section of road and trail is. Now, granted, that end of it actually has a lot of gravel that goes up to that radio tower. So when you have that situation, it's easy for people to come up and just dump stuff out. But like stuff like that safe and stuff like the wood pile, like that's dedication and some work to really go out of your way to trash
Yep.
up and dump an area. So
That's like all the stuff that was dumped at Hell's Hollow over the years.
yeah,
It's pretty surprising.
yeah, same situation there. And I'll be honest with you, if we had 4 times the crew and 3 or 4 more trailers, I don't think it would all get done in a weekend. Like it's really bad up there. It kind of opens my eyes about just how horrible it is in our area of people dumping trash. But we were excited to be able to represent FDSR and make a small dent in it at least. But I think even the more frustrating part for me was whenever we were leaving, me and Joey went down Hockenberry Hollow, right? When you get down at the end of Hockenberry Hollow, you'll see the railroad trestle, and it comes right out on the Route 19, right beside the Mon River.
Yep.
Right on my right, there's a slightly wide gravel spot. There was just as much trash dumped right there on that gravel spot. It's 25 feet from Route 19.
Yep.
Like, guys, we got to do a little bit better around here with that, man. I mean, there's plenty of places that will take that garbage, people that'll take it to the landfill for free. If you get with REAP, they'll provide a lot of dumpsters and stuff for you to clean up messes like that. So it's frustrating to see a beautiful state like we have here getting trashed up.
Yeah,
And it,
there's few things that bother me more than litter.
yeah,
Just it's almost anywhere you can go in the state, no matter how far away you think you are from, you know, civilization. You think you're in an area untouched by man, you can always find,
yeah,
at least a beer can, a beer bottle, stickers, wrappers, stuff like that.
yeah,
It's frustrating, and it goes so far beyond that. There's areas that are almost dedicated dump sites for
yeah,
local communities that, well, Fort Hill's been used as one, Hell's Hollow's been used as one. Um, it's pretty common, unfortunately.
yeah. And it wasn't just our area. There was a lot of awesome groups. They're all kind of partnered up with the Country Roads Coalition that took part in that. One of the groups there, Eric Larch and his crew, were down in the Sanderson area, which we've ridden through a few times.
Yep.
They found like I think it was 2 burned out cars and was able to get those out. So
So when Fred and I were up at Fort Hill, in spring of this year, there's at least one burned
Yeah.
out car that's over the hill up
Yeah,
there.
that's what we affectionately refer to as the end of the world trail because it's on that hill climb as you come down.
Yes.
It's about halfway down. I do remember seeing
Yep.
that thing down there. There's one on Hell's Hollow too. If you take this kind of funny, what we call
Is
the
it
Meth Lab Trail.
is it the Jeep
It's
that's
the
on the
Jeep that's
power line?
yeah, it's on that power line down there. Yeah, so yeah, we got some burned out vehicles in our area
Yeah.
too, and that was a running gag and theme. It seemed like every time we would go to Hell's Hollow, where the playground is, there would always be a burned out stolen vehicle there on the playground.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times we saw Dodge Dakotas or Chrysler New Yorker was up there one time, all flexed out on the rock section.
Of
So
course.
it's hard to tell what you're
So,
going to see.
and then beyond just the litter side of things, people's fascination with burning pallets in the middle of roads,
Yeah,
pallets, tires. People love to burn stuff that leaves debris that pokes holes through tires.
yeah,
It's it's a
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, nails hold that stuff together, so they're going to go somewhere. They're
Yeah,
not going to get burned up.
yeah.
But yeah, Tread Lightly Day, really good success. A shout out to Jerry Bain and all the people behind the scenes organizing that. And we look forward to continue that partnership and making our area a little bit brighter and cleaner. So really good thing there, and was happy to be part of that this weekend. All right, up next, Trevor, got a question for you. Is the new Cove 800 a true unicorn motorcycle? Now I
It's
know.
a strong contender for being one.
Let's dive into it, buddy. So I know it's been a little bit, but we did an episode actually building our own unicorn motorcycle. And I know some of the key highlights that we had was under 400 pounds, twin cylinder, parallel twin, 270-degree crankshaft. It had to have long travel suspension. We wanted
Adjustable long travel
adjustable
suspension.
long travel suspension. We wanted tubeless wheels, front rear 18 and a 21.
Yep.
And so far with all that, that's 5 different points. The Cove really, on paper, hits all of
Yep.
those
On
points.
paper.
So let's show a couple of pictures here because yeah, it's one thing to announce these motorcycles, which it seems like the release dates always push back, push back, push back. Well, these things are actually starting to get into the hands of owners and dealers, and you're getting some really impressive feedback so far on these things. This is actually a guy named Scotty that's on Adventure Rider, and he, to my knowledge, is probably the first guy in the United States to own one. Nothing but rave reviews from him about this motorcycle, and from what I've seen, according to his post, he's had an Aprilia Touareg, he's ridden Tenere 700s, he's really smack dab in that middleweight adventure bike segment. So got a lot of experience with that thing. But it's a good looking bike. Um, let's run down through the specs as they stand. So 385 pounds dry weight. So you're roughly sub 400 wet. Uh, Claimed 95 horsepower on the rally version, which the rally version isn't 50 state street legal. The
But all the free world can have it.
Yeah, the free world can have that one.
Yeah.
But the kind of base model still puts out an impressive 85 horsepower to the rear wheels. That's 16 horsepower more than a T7.
That's
I mean, that's all you need.
that's beyond plenty.
Yeah. I believe it was a 5-gallon fuel tank, and
That's really good. I'm really glad to see these companies coming stock with, essentially the size fuel tank you'd be fitting aftermarket from IMS or a
Mhm.
Chirby's or somebody.
uh, you know, pretty good fit and finish. A lot of anodized aluminum parts. It has the typical exposed outside spoke rims that we're seeing a lot on these bikes now to make them tubeless and still serviceable, which I think that's something that's going to catch on with a lot of manufacturers
Yeah.
these days.
I think it's a pretty good
Yeah,
solution,
I think it is
all
too.
things considered, because you're eliminating. I know there's kits that you can get some kind of 3M adhesive and sealant and all this junk and make tubeless rims and everything, but a lot of these factory tubeless rims are set up similar to like a wheel on a Jeep or a truck. Like there's the outer lip, and then you've got the little valley where your bead's going to sit, and then there's a little hump that
Yeah,
would prevent that from easily popping back over and releasing air or something like that.
almost like a safety bead.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good solution. Something I've noticed is companies like Taco Co. have started to produce some stuff for the Kobe 400s. Um, they're talking about aftermarket ECUs, and I think that's really where things are going to start to take off when companies start embracing these machines, and you're not relying on manufacturer ECU tunes and all this other junk. Because I had the similar experience on my betas. The mapping just wasn't right.
Yeah.
It was it liked to flame out. It would bog at odd random times, and it really just needed the ECU, tuned out a little bit better. So to have that capability now, for a Chinese bike is something that we haven't had previously.
Yeah. Uh, a lot of the reviews that are coming out on this thing, I know I sent you one there last night. It was actually a Russian guy that I've
Yes,
subscribed to because this dude's hilarious. All the
Mech
stuff.
Mech Melanchon or
Yeah,
something like
it's
that.
weird.
He does. I
It,
started following him. He was doing like the pizza
yeah,
delivery videos or whatever on
yeah.
the
Looked like
Two
a
Stroke.
Domino's guy on
Yeah,
a KTM 125 SX riding down the street. Um, yeah, he did a review. Was able to convert it over to English subtitles and watch. Somebody's ripping down the street here, but I mean, he had nothing but high praise about the machine. Was going down through the display, which I mean, let's be honest, that's one of the nicest digital displays on any adventure bike that I've
yep,
seen so far. And here's something that I think they took a lot of feedback from riders and implemented, which I have yet to see on any other middleweight adventure bike. The ability to turn off the ABS and traction control and leave it off
yep.
when you shut the key off. That's a huge selling point.
That should be industry standard. Unfortunately, it's not, due to possibility of litigation
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
It's hard to sue China though.
Oh yeah. So they're in a position that a lot of these compliant manufacturers can't be in. But
Right. Well, I think that has a lot to do, like you said, we talked about with like Beta and these other companies being able to get away with some of that stuff because they're such a small volume manufacturer that
yep,
they don't meet that criteria to have to follow by so many rules and regulations. But yeah, it was so funny. He was going through the screens and it was talking about ABS front on off forever was the bottom option.
yep,
And that was to turn it off even when the keys turned off. Same thing with the traction control. You know, that those modes we've talked about it in another episode about rider aids and what have you. But my riding background and experience, I tell you right now, on my Africa Twin, as soon as I get on that thing and fire it up, the traction control goes off, the ABS goes off, and I ride it like a dirt bike.
and that front wheel comes up to 12 o'clock.
I used to live in Baltimore.
Huh.
12 o'clock, boys.
I watched a video somewhat recently of some guys that were taking, this is like Husky 700s over Engineer Pass or something like that, and the guy kept blaming the traction control, and this, that, the other, and the whole time I was like, just turn it off, just do away with it, quit complaining that
Yeah.
you need the ability to spin the back tire to make it up some of this stuff. The bike won't let you. You need to be able to get rid of it, and same with ABS. I like the concept of ABS, but only when I want it.
Yeah, like rain on the pavement,
Yeah.
it's a good thing to have.
Yep. I know the first year we did the hard loop, there was a guy on like a KTM 690 or something like that. It was a pretty slick downhill. There was a lot of like rounded rocks embedded in clay on Fort Hill, and this dude had been a relatively slow rider all day. Not that I'm fast, especially now. Uh, um, he just absolutely flew down it, and I was like, that's probably the fastest line I've seen somebody cut down this downhill. And I
Yeah.
get to the bottom, his shaking, his eyes are as big as dinner plates, and I was like, man, that was really impressive. He just looks at me, said the ABS was on or something along those lines. So
I get that fear, dude. I don't know how many times I've taken off on the AT and forgot to turn the ABS off, and I'm going down something that it should not
yeah,
be on at all, and I have no brakes.
you
Like, it's not
see,
very fun.
we should have just stuck with drum brakes.
Yeah,
It's They're their own ABS
that's
cable
true.
actuated drums,
Yeah,
like the ones on the Trail 90 and my 90s model Yamaha.
Uh, real
You're
quick,
not going to lock them up.
real quick, funny story. Years ago, I was racing the 125 schoolboy class, Paul Kuntz air scrambles, and my 125 blew up the day before we were to race the Halleck race. So out where Trickett Hill is and
Yep.
all that stuff used to be a racetrack out that way. And I had to do the race and get points. And my mom at the time had an XR 200. Well, you were allowed up to a 200cc uh, limit on that class. So all right, I'm gonna race mom's XR 200, get some points. And you know how the elevation changes over in that area.
Yep.
That track was nothing but uphills and downhills. And by the end of the race, I'd ran out of threads on the adjuster rod on the back brake to just try to get a little bit more action
Yep.
out of the back. But yeah, ended up just kind of engine braking down the hills the rest of the day. And actually, you know what the best part
Which an
is?
XR 200 has a surprisingly decent amount of engine brake.
That was the perfect bike for that track because I lapped everyone in my class
Yep.
and won. So yeah, XR 200 shout out. But yeah, getting back to the Cove here, you have a, a platform that's loosely based on the KTM 790 engine. There's claims that it's been tweaked and tuned specifically for Cove, however you want to pronounce it.
They made the cams harder.
I hope they did, and that was probably one of the main concerns about this bike. But supposedly the head is completely different, so I hope that they
Nice.
address that issue. Um, it has KYB front and rear
Yep.
forks or front forks and rear shock,
That's
48 millimeter,
yep.
completely adjustable.
That to me is a must for me to consider a Chinese bike. You had your GPX that had
SZC, which is
SVC.
loosely based on WP stuff. I know a lot of the WP, like the fork springs and the cartridge valves and stuff, would swap. It was close enough.
Yeah.
It was just a copy of WP stuff.
So, using Kayaba suspension instead of getting on a forum and hoping that the dude that's telling you what parts are swappable, you just go to Kayaba's site, search that model number, and there's the information that you need.
Yeah, and I believe it also has Nissan brakes front and rear, so it's kind of a standard brake pad that a lot of bikes use.
Yep,
And
Nissan's pretty good.
that's a great point. Once these Chinese motorcycle companies start utilizing some actual name brand stuff, you don't have to be like I was and be the guinea pig to figure out
Yeah.
what swaps over or what's compatible.
So, I don't have. How am I going to say this? I have some faith in their ability to produce an engine. They've been producing
Yeah,
scooter motors. They produce motors for other, bike companies, this, that, the other. Um, it's interesting to see China start to lean towards innovation after, being known for copying, which, to my understanding, is what kind of happened in Japan post-war. And
yeah.
then you had like Hodaka and early Honda, Kawasaki, all that stuff, and then the innovation happened. Um, that's interesting to see. But for me, it's an absolute must for like the suspension and brakes at a minimum to be produced by already established reputable dealers. I don't want like you know Balfang whatever brand. Um, not to trash on the radios. That was just the
I
first
use a
thing
lot
that
of
came to mind. But you know, for me, it gives me a lot of peace of mind if I were to own one. That those are things that they're established. They can be trusted.
Right. And readily available because
Yep.
we've touched on that before. That's going to be the biggest factor about whether this bike is successful or not.
Yep.
Is the aftermarket going to pick it up? Is companies like Takamoto and
Yep.
countless others going to start making improvement parts? Which
like Vortex, Athena with their Get, like stuff like that.
yeah,
Something that I always wonder what kind of bearings stuff uses, because I've had a couple instances in the past. It's like some very odd size bearing that's difficult to source. To me, it would be a no-brainer to use the same size bearings for like wheel bearings. Front and rear is, for instance, what KTM uses.
Yeah.
So factory, you're probably going to get Chinese bearings, which there's several well-established bearing companies that do produce some stuff in China. Like SKF comes to mind.
Yep.
It's not that they can't produce it. It's just that if you have a bike that's built to a price point, that's an easy place to save, a decent chunk of change by the time you figure your front rear wheel bearings, your linkage bearings, your head stem bearings, all that stuff. Because the difference between like Tusk bearings and genuine KTM wheel bearings and price, it's like 300% difference or
Yeah.
something like that. It's significant.
Yeah.
But that's just stuff I wonder about is how available are the consumables?
Yep. That's a great point, and I honestly think that's going to be what makes or breaks the bike. Now these specs come out and they wow you, and you're like, okay, this is going to be the new king of the middleweight adventure bike segment. But I pause at that because the everyday Joe rider that walks into a dealership and he has what roughly $12,000 to say he wants to buy a middleweight adventure bike. Is that guy going to take the chance on the Cove 800 that really nobody knows about yet, or he's going to buy something well established like a Tenere
Yep.
700 or an Aprilia?
So I think that like Tenere or Yamaha, Aprilia, similar companies that offer middleweight adventure bikes, Honda with their
The
new
Transalp.
Transalp, are definitely going to be a more common choice for folks that are getting into it. But for guys that have been in the hobby that are very accustomed to wrenching, have done fork jobs, split engine cases, this, that, the other, are going to be more likely to take a chance.
Mhm.
Plus, some people just really get off on having the weird stuff nobody else has.
I'm that guy.
So
That's a great point, man. I can see that. Like, the guys that see those specs and they see the potential, and yeah,
yes,
maybe it needs a little bit of fine tuning here and there, but the end product that you can get out of that could potentially be the best all around motorcycle that we've
yep,
ever seen. Now, let me tell you, you guys know out there that have watched the show for a long time, I've had my problems with GPX, Cove, Gary Goodwin, and all that stuff. I'm going to tell you something right now. If I got the chance to ride one of those and am probably going to be impressed by the way that I pretty much feel about it, I'd definitely buy one. I'd give it a shot.
yeah. Probably the best approach for Cove right now is just do some demo days. But again, kind of where they fall flat is the lack of an established dealer network.
Yeah. Yeah, you have USA Motor Toys in Utah and some fringe dealerships. Well, those fringe dealerships all have to get their stuff from Utah, so
Yeah,
there's a lot of give and take there. It's not like you said, the network just is not there quite yet. But with the 450 rally and this bike coming, I got a good feeling that this is going to be their launching pad to get that out there. Um, I've seen nothing but rave reviews about the 450 rally, so I have no doubt in my mind this 800 is going to be a success as well.
yeah. I think earlier I mentioned or said incorrectly 400.
Yeah,
I forget it
it's
was a
450.
450.
Yep.
Yeah. Um,
So we'll see, man. Wait and see game at this point, but
it's interesting if nothing else. Like I've said in the past, that's what drives development is competition. So
well, speaking of development, we saw something that kind of came out of left field. You sent this to me, and it really honestly blew me away. But I do have some thoughts about this of why I think this came to be. But we're going to talk about it. I'll let you kind of say your piece about it, and then I'll kind of say what I think about this. But are we getting a refreshed DRZ 400 after 23 years of it being the same bike?
so I won't go on mic and say that we are, but based on the images and the rest of the junk from the article, um, strong possibility that we're actually getting
Yeah.
an updated DRZ, and that's
What?
kind of been a running joke. Is that DRZ's been unchanged. It's like the horseshoe crab of bikes. It's completely unevolved since its inception, right?
Yeah. It's an
Um,
arthropod.
yeah, exactly.
Let's go through some of these real quick here because this is what you sent me. This is a patent drawing that was submitted by Suzuki for a DRZ 400. Now, As you guys can see, we definitely have a slightly different frame. We have some RMZ styled plastic on this thing. Um,
They, I'll go ahead and say it. They made the plastics a little less ugly.
yeah, try to just get it up into modern times. Now,
Yeah.
you guys see here, you can see the exhaust. Now, it bulges up pretty good there on the left-hand side. I wonder why
My
that could
doctor
be.
says that's normal.
Here's a top-down view of the engine, and you can kind of make out what's feeding that thumper right there, Trevor. Sure looks like some Keyhen fuel injection to
Yeah,
me.
last I checked, that is an EFI based throttle body.
Yeah,
So here's the thing: you guys on a lot of these forums have pissed and moaned for decades about the need to modernize the DRZ, and here it is, and you better love it
yep,
because this is what you if I don't know. They modernized the KLR, brought it up with the EFI, and it was 30 pounds heavier. So I don't recall if they spit out a spec on weight.
not that I saw.
Um, and a good chunk of that's emissions equipment. And James had pointed out the bulge in the header, so that's a catalyst for the
Yep.
catalytic converter system. But I'm sure FMF or another company is going to offer a solution for that for the price. And it's really going to be interesting because there's such a big subculture around DRZs, solely based on like the carbs.
Yeah.
Like there's virtually forums that are dedicated to just carb tuning on those things. So that's going to be interesting. Um, Something else too that people have complained about, rightfully so, based on my experience, is the lack of a sixth gear.
Yep. So if you look in those drawings, there's a little bit more room, it appears, around the engine cases. Now, it's not been confirmed that this thing's going to be a 6-speed, but I really feel that if they do make this a 6-speed transmission with that EFI, you're basically solving all the problems that the DRZ has and everyone complains about, like you said.
Yep.
So
Bring up do you have the image of the side,
I believe I do.
the
Here, hang on one second.
frame tube and all that junk?
Let's see. That one there is the one you look for?
Yeah. So the way that the actual, not down tube, but frame spar,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, the way that actually looks, it almost looks like it's an aluminum casting.
Could be.
I'm not saying that that's going to be the case, but it would not be the first Suzuki to have an aluminum cast welded into like aluminum bar for the frame, which for a dual sport probably not going that direction, but a man can dream. Um, if they come out with a 6-speed, um, decent power, decent torque, you would have the tunability. Just a piggyback EFI controller, which is $200 or something like that. Like it's not terrible. Um, I mean, I'd probably buy one of those over a KTM. I've said it for some time. If they come out with a WR300R, I'd have bought that over my KTM. But I mean, this is the first real instance of a genuine, I guess, ground up update for a Japanese bike in some time. Yeah, they modernized the KLR, but it still got the same suspension, the same frame geometry, the same this, the same that. I don't know. It On paper it's promising. In reality, it might end up being a flop. There's no way to know, but I'm excited to check it out.
I've got some thoughts. So here's my
Tell
thoughts.
me your thoughts.
First off, why is it that Suzuki, of all of the Japanese manufacturers, seems to be the only ones that just kind of come out of left field with like, oh yeah, let's build this or let's update this. We said the same thing about the V-Strom 800. That thing was like, what?
Yeah,
What is this? And
Yeah.
it's a great motorcycle. Everybody loves it.
It's like, is this even Suzuki anymore?
Yeah,
Like, you guys never change
you don't
anything.
update anything. You still sell RMZ 450 and 250 motocross bikes that are kickstart. You're the last motocross competitive motorcycle that's kickstart only.
Which the RMZ is the Andler hill climb hill
Uh,
killer,
yeah,
and
uh,
it wasn't.
two times. Did you
I
see
was
the
gonna
last one?
exactly. It wasn't just by chance that he did it the first time. He did it again.
That is the
So
most impressive thing ever. You basically the worst 450 Japanese motorcycle we think of climbs the impossible hill climb in France. There, the
yeah,
Adler climb. Crazy. Yeah. So Suzuki, who let's be frank, is on the verge of bankruptcy for several years, and
just
is
like KTM.
kind of gets themselves, you know, pulled together out of left field. Comes out with the V-Strom 800, which is a huge success. Obviously, the venerable DR650 continues to be popular, successful, and probably one of the
There's a thought. Are we going to see a fuel injected DR650?
could be coming down the pike as well. Now, here's taking that aside, that Suzuki, wow, okay, of all the Japanese brands, you're going to be the one that kind of brings this to us. My second thought is this: I believe this is Suzuki's easiest way to get some sales back from this ever growing smaller adventure bike market. With the popularity of the new Royal Enfield 450 and the CF Moto 450, I think this is their way to also cut into that new market that you see developing now.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I definitely don't think that this was an instance of, we can't meet Euro 6 or whatever number emission standard they're on. Um, I think that this was an instance, like you're talking about, of them wanting to start to reclaim some of that market share. And for how long have these Japanese manufacturers sat and watched people adventurize KTM 500
Hmm.
EXCs? It has been going on for forever. Um, People try to adventurize DRZ 400s. I think there's some aftermarket options for 6-speed
Yeah, wide
transmissions and stuff like
ratios, and
that,
it's really expensive though.
but they're a lighter weight option.
Mhm.
That's about 315, 320 pounds. But once you set up an adventure bike, if you can stay under 350 pounds of fuel, yeah, I consider that a lightweight adventure bike. But
I think
I
they're
think
going to.
they're in a good spot for it, as long as when it comes out, it's usable
Yeah,
without uh, FMF exhaust, without a Vortex ECU. That was the thing that put me off from a Sierra 450L, because
hmm
I'd reached out to Billy at one point and was saying like, "Hey, there's a dealer with one of these brand new for whatever price. Was it usable in stock form?" He pretty much said no.
yeah.
Like it flamed out. It was not. It did not run like it was supposed to until there was some money put into it.
I, just in my eyes, if same deal like we talked about with the Cove 800, if I'm rolling into a dealership and I'm looking to buy a smaller CC dual sport slash adventure motorcycle that I'm mostly going to be riding off road, and that's my options. What are my options in that segment? I've got the CRF 300L, which has no suspension at all, and let's be frank, is not rideable without a lot of work on the suspension. KLX 300, yeah, that's a good choice. We like that bike.
Yeah,
You have the CF Moto 450 MT, which kind of it's Chinese. What's the parts availability going to be like? There's a lot to talk about the fuel controlling and the EFI not being very good. It likes to flame out. It's kind of on or off. The Royal Enfield 450, that's probably really high on my list.
yeah.
I think that's a great looking bike, and I think they're going to knock it out of the park with that. But if I've got a DRZ 400 that's refreshed with EFI, 6 speeds, and it still has that Suzuki price point that it's probably going to have, that's probably going to be my number one choice right there.
Well, everything is some form of trade off. Um, People are going to end up cross shopping TRZ 400s, the new ones, against like KTM 500 EXCs, you're going to have to determine what do you want to prioritize. Do you want to prioritize a lightweight, like 250, 260 pound bike, or do you want to prioritize service intervals?
Yeah.
Um, because if you put a lot of miles on a KTM, you're going to be doing, a significant number of valve checks, which aren't terrible, mind you. My KTM's been a joy to work on for everything, but it's still time that you have to squeeze in during the week to get that lined out so you can go ride on the weekend, or you know, trying to stay on top of short oil change intervals. And yeah, so I'm not dogging it. I knew what I was getting into when I bought one, but if there's a bike that the only downside is that it's heavier,
You can live with that.
if you're wanting an adventure bike, I think that's a fair trade-off, because if you're not doing like a lot of single track, which in the case of my KTM, it gets used for a lot of enduro single track junk like that. Um, if you don't need that lightweight, I think it's a good trade-off, and you are hopefully still getting that Suzuki reliability, like that sledgehammer, reliable, um, tough as nails construction.
Out of every single liquid cooled 4-stroke motor that I know, that 400 Suzuki engine is probably the most reliable, bulletproof one there is.
Yep.
I mean, it's like an anvil. But again, in my eyes, it's really exciting to see them take that step to listen to their people eventually and finally do that refresh. I think this is going to be a huge success. I can't wait to see what unfolds, and if it's a 6 speed, is it a 5 speed? We'll see. And just like the KLR 650 with the Euro 5 emissions and in Australia, being able to market that bike to those areas again, because the DRZ 400 is the DRZ, as they say at our friends down under, is a staple over there.
They're so beloved that there's tour companies that outfitted their entire fleet
Is all
of
DRZ.
30 bikes is just bright yellow
I think
DRZs. Sorry.
I think being able to market that back in those areas is they're going to knock it out of the park again
Yep.
with that. So excited to see that. All right, up next.
More exciting news.
Yeah, get two more to go here. Is Triumph positioned to take away KTM's dominance, bud?
I don't know if I'd word it like that. Question is KTM in a position to maintain dominance?
That's the grab you
Yeah.
caption there. That's the YouTube thumbnail.
Click
Click here.
Yeah.
But so lots of stuff coming out from Triumph here recently. Obviously, we've kind of made fun of it on the show as how they kept teasing the 250 that was coming out. It was like, stay tuned next week. We're going to show the ball end of the clutch lever.
Which, I mean, that's how it seemed to unroll. I mean, this
Years and years.
yeah,
and
it
years
was a
and
very
years.
long, drawn out unveiling, but ultimately it seemed to have some substance behind it.
Yeah, so obviously they had Ricky Carmichael come on board to kind of help with their Supercross and Motocross program. I can't remember which race it was, but they actually did podium in the 250 class. So that's pretty big for a first year manufacturer. Here was the TF 250 X that came out with global reveal, and kind of stepping away from the motocross supercross side of things. The thing that piqued our interest was an enduro model with an 18-inch rear wheel.
Yep.
Pretty decent power, kind of set up, a little
Yeah.
softer suspension and stuff for the enduro market.
I know people are going to trash on it for being a four-stroke, but the whole super enduro circuit's becoming more and more and more popular, and it is
Lightweight
largely
250Fs.
exactly. So even Billy Bolt, I think, is out there doing it on a KTM 350 or a Husky 350 or something along those lines. So I was excited to see it. Any enduro offering definitely piques my interest, because I do good enough to keep bike planning on the ground without going airborne. So
Yeah.
motocross is not my gig, but
Anytime we have more offerings on our side of things, it's going to be
Yep.
it's a good thing. Now, I got to give Triumph credit. So on the motocross side of things, they went over after Ricky Carmichael, the GOAT, to try to head up their program. Well, when they announced the enduro side of things, they kind of did the same thing. For those of you who don't know, that's Mr. Paul Edmondson. Paul is a four-time world enduro champion. He came over and raced a lot of GNCCs when I was a kid. I actually got to meet him a couple of times. Great dude.
And
Um,
movie star.
he is a movie star. For those of you who don't know, he was James Bond, aka Daniel Craig's stunt double in the motorcycle scenes in No Time to Die. So this guy knows about what it takes to win a world enduro championship. He's an off-road legend, and I really don't think they could have picked a better person to try to put together their team and their program for the off-road circuits that are coming up. And speaking of that, there is one small catch that I don't agree with, and that was their rider choice. They picked some no-name guy that used to install
Yeah,
windows.
this dude's just a regular blue collar window installer. Why on earth would you pick him? So Johnny Walker and Beta parted ways some time back, and yeah, I'd sent James a post on Instagram about it, and he was in the comments, uncertain about his future. People were asking like, "You going to keep riding?" He's like, "I don't know about competitively. Heck, I can always fall back on my trade, which was window
Window
installation."
installation.
And a couple weeks passed, and I saw a promo or whatever he posted that he is on Team Triumph now. I assume that he's going to be doing like the Super Enduro circuit on
Mhm.
one of those bikes, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. Isn't it cool though how and we've talked about this multiple times. Obviously the money is in Supercross and Motocross. That's when the guys are getting these huge contracts,
Yep.
and the teams are separate. They don't really share information. Yeah, you might see some videos of guys riding together once in a while, but it just doesn't happen a whole lot. But when you get into the hard enduro and the world enduro stuff, the guys are just regular down to earth dudes who honestly aren't making that much money. A lot of the guys have to do trade work like that on the side just to be able
Yep.
to pay their entry fees and whatnot. And how many times you get on YouTube and see these guys constantly training and riding together, and it doesn't matter. I've seen stuff with Mario Ramon from Sherco and Billy Bolt with Husky and his own company now or whatever, and Johnny Walker when he was on Beta.
Yep.
All these guys are out there just having a good time riding together. You don't see that in any other type of competitive sports, in my
The
opinion.
whole motocross thing for some time got to be a little bit too celebrity oriented. It's coming back. I mean, you've got guys like Aaron Plessinger getting fined for swearing, which is great because it is a rough and gritty sport and it should attract, rough and gritty contestants. I think it started to get too movie like, too sterilized, um, and it's come back to like the Jeremy McGrath era,
Yeah.
and like Metal Militia era and stuff like that.
You know what era we need to get back to? The
Ca-
Camel Supercross
yeah,
stuff,
Camel
baby.
Supercross.
Shout out TikTok for that one.
So I will tell you what, the absolute coolest um, bike liveries I've ever seen for like Dakar stuff like that are Lucky, Marlboro, Camel.
Oh yeah.
They had like the Camel Trophy bike segment. It was all like one year was a Honda Dominator or something like that, all done up in yellow and blue, like the Camel graphics. It was just so cool.
I don't care if it's bad for you. They look cool. That's the main thing, right?
Man, they really do make it look cool.
Well, we'll see what happens here with Triumph and the outdoor or the hair scramble and enduro side of things. I think they've got two of the best guys that were available to put this thing together, and we'll see what happens. Now, along with that, some breaking news from our good buddy Ryan Melton, aka MXG, on YouTube. He released a little snippet that I saw here. So Triumph is currently in production and R&D on a 450. So what will we see come of that? I'm going to say that
Put a license plate on it. Put blinkers on it.
that would be
Put it on the
fantastic.
market, please.
I think that I think eventually we'll see that. I think it's going to be the 250's out long enough now where they can make the enduro model.
Yeah.
I think the 450 will kind of go through that same process because yeah, I can see Johnny racing that 250 on a lot of stuff, but I think he'd probably like that 450 power a little
Yeah.
bit too on some stuff.
And there's
But hopefully we see that all come full center around, and we get blinkers and license plates.
Yeah,
I think Triumph sees that there's definitely a market for that type of
I think
harder stuff.
I mean, we might be in an interesting period of time. We could see Triumph start to become. I mean, previously they were known for like a lot of road. I know back in the day they were known for some enduro bikes and
Hmm.
stuff, and they shifted more to road oriented stuff. And they had like the Tiger adventure bike,
Yep.
but
They got some decent adventure bikes, yeah.
yeah, but you know, thinking about we got a 250, the 250 enduro, we'll get a 450, and I made the comment to you. It's once they tune out the chassis and handling, suspension, etc., is contract a company like Raiju for some two-stroke engines.
Yeah.
And
Take a page out of KTM's book and just start buying manufacturer stuff.
yeah, maybe they can contract through Kimco, but
Probably everybody
it
else
is
has.
in a sense some clickbait about is KTM going to lose market dominance, but KTM, based on the last stuff that I read, is not doing good in terms of utilizing or capturing market share right now. Um, for a while, they were, kind of joked about their quality and everything, reliability, and then they made some serious improvements and you know started pumping out some pretty good bikes. In my opinion, I know a lot of us ride KTM's of similar eras, and largely they've been good. But like the stuff with the cams and everything else are starting to backslide a little bit. They're really trying to present themselves as an Austrian manufactured machine and rely on that pedigree, which I don't think is necessarily fair because you're buying a bike that you know the engine stuff's been assembled and produced in China.
With Kimco pistons.
Yeah, on the two strokes, which that was its own issue. But what bothered me about the whole camware issue was the lack of goodwill towards customers.
It's not
Uh,
a it's not a us problem, it's a you problem.
yeah, that sounds a
We
lot
talked
like
about
a
that.
you problem, boy. Like,
It's
yeah,
almost like used car dealer rhetoric at this point. Like,
it's just really bothersome. You spend that much money on a bike, and the manufacturer's like looking at a cam that clearly has, 2 millimeters of material wore off the face. It's like that's just discoloration.
that's a feature.
Yeah, that's not a bug; it's a feature. It's just really bothersome. But anything could happen. They could right the ship and continue things, or Husky could change hands for the fourth time in 15 years. Who knows? But
Are you Italian Husky? Are you BMW Husky? Are you KTM Husky? Are you Swedish Husky? Who
what
knows?
what kind of Husky are you?
Big and
But
tall.
but yeah, once Triumph gets in there, I'd really like to see him start eating some of KTM's lunch and hopefully spur something. But man, this Pier Mobility Group, Perrier, whatever it is, um, they're not enthusiast focused. They don't give a flying anything.
It's all about the profits,
It is
babe.
all about it's a pump and dump scheme. It
Yep.
is a classic case of an investment conglomerate buying out an otherwise profitable and successful company and finding a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Like it is disgusting what is going on. But that's what happens pretty much anytime a large investment group buys out a brand.
We'll see what the future holds. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
All right, last and certainly not least, at the unveiling of the Chattahoochee BDRX, which we talked about on our previous episode together,
Way down yonder.
way down yonder there in northern Georgia, the release party of that, afterwards, the representatives from the BDR were talking to the crowd and announced OHIO equals BDR.
Does it?
Yes, it
I'm
does.
not good at math.
There is a official. Now, this isn't a BDRX. This is a legit Ohio BDR will be coming.
Sweet.
Now, doing a little bit of research from what I could find, because there's really nothing online about this yet. Good friends of the program from Ohio, Brad McFadden and Kane Wagner, and some other guys are kind of helping spearhead this and put it together behind the scenes. And from what I was told and what I could research and find, what you're going to have is basically a combination of some of their routes with some other stuff that they know, and you will have a full Ohio BDR, which is exciting. It's another one in our area that you'll be able to ride and
Yeah.
be pretty close by. So,
Extend out your trip.
yeah. So we're looking forward to that, and as soon as we get some more details, we will let you know. All right, let's go through some comments. We got a lot of these tonight, which is exciting and awesome. So let's go through here. First up is from Michael Waterford. Thanks for watching, Michael. Unable to find y'all on Spotify. Coming to YouTube. Confirming YouTube only at the moment. Yeah, YouTube and our Facebook page, Tallboys and Trackmasters. Look us up on there. I've went through some stuff trying to add to Spotify, and it's a little bit of a crapshoot, and I got to get a little more familiar with that. And I have thought about adding our back catalog of saved things to Spotify, but I don't know. I kind of like showing our face on stuff. It's kind of hard sometimes when you're just listening to things to get the gist of what we're talking about. But it's something we're looking for in the future. Thanks for the comment.
You'd miss out on a lovely wreath.
Yeah, yeah, our Christmas wreath. Isaac Sanders, hi Isaac, how are you, buddy? What's up, guys? Just living the dream on another Tuesday night, my friend. Speaking of MXG, haha, Gary Goodwin called out. I've done it once and I'll do it again, buddy.
I
What's
watched.
that?
I
What's
watched
that
it
meme of the
happen.
little cartoon guy where he's like, "I'll do it again"? It's like Goofy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. I'll do it. Send me a Cove 800 to try, Gary, and maybe we can make amends. Isaac says, "Would it change wood challenges though to being a 6-speed?" I think their market's really more towards the dual sport and ADV stuff than it is actual like single track stuff.
In its current configuration, you can set a DRZ up one of two ways.
Yeah,
you can
can't
either make it fantastic in the
on-
woods. Actually, one of three ways. You make it fantastic in the woods, terrible on pavement. Good on pavement, gravel, terrible in the woods. Or you can split the difference and create a gear ratio that sucks at both. Like it's
just
it's
bad.
a really odd fifth gear ratio that makes it difficult to get something that works for purpose.
What I don't understand is that it replaced the DR350, which is a 6-speed. I've rode Mom's DR6 or 350.
Yeah.
The gear ratio is fantastic on that bike. You want to cross some single track stuff, put it in first gear. You want to cruise the freeway at 75 to 80 miles an hour, put it in 6th gear.
I think
works.
I think the chassis of the later model DR350, the handling and everything was
it's great.
better.
I love
what
that
the
bike.
DRZ is, but
it's true. Laugh out loud. Sprockets and so forth fix a lot. Now that's kind of what we just talked about there.
You can get it close, but it's hard to get it perfect.
Mr. Greg Blakey says he would daily an EFI DRZ.
You must be tired of valve checks. You wouldn't daily your KTM 350.
Jamie Thomas. Hey, Jamie. Jake Swole finished third on the Triumph at Unadilla at the Outdoor Motocross. Thanks for the heads up there, man. I knew it was one of those not too long ago.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. I love Unadilla. That's such a fun place to watch and ride. Done a lot of GNCC races up there. Michael Waterford also heard from a Triumph dealership that they have a 450 dual sport coming fall of 2025. Ooh. We'll hold you to that, bud. That would be fantastic to see.
Very exciting.
You know, between it and the Sherco 500, you could have a hell of a problem picking what.
Yeah, there's going to be multiple KTM 500 EXC equivalents hitting the market probably about right on the time that KTM's really starting to downslide. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Or inflation's so high that you can't afford groceries or motorcycles. We'll see. Matthew
Why
Bell.
not both?
There's backcountry in Ohio. All I've ever seen are cornfield and farms, but I'm down for it. Yeah, Matt. There's you get on Kane Wagner and let's see, and Brad McFadden's various sites and YouTube channels. They've got the Southern Ohio Adventure Loop, the Soul, and the Goat. Very great routes around Ohio. Lots of cool back road riding around in Ohio, and a lot of cool stuff in Zanesville. There's a lot of fun riding around in that area as well.
Heard that.
All right, let's get to the very last part of the show, and definitely not least, had to lay her down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
This week's Had to Lay Her Down is a lesson in why you should never try to pass anything with a trailer and a blind turn. Should be common knowledge, but we'll let this play out here. That's not good.
Absolutely terrible. High siding is one of the worst things you can do in a single vehicle accident.
With a passenger.
Ask me how I know.
Yeah, with a passenger. Obviously, this isn't here in the United States. It's somewhere overseas, but narrow lanes. I mean, kind of from what I can see, it looks like that right-hand lane is the only lane that you should be traveling that direction
Yeah.
on. It looks like it's kind of two lanes on the other side.
Yep.
So definitely the rider's fault, and not a good idea to put yourself and your passenger in that risk.
Yeah, I
there.
think it's
So,
especially applicable in this state because there's a lot of areas where you're going to be stuck behind, you know, farm trucks, stuff like that, going slow through the mountains. Passing on the double yellow can get tempting. It's not worth your life, and if you're riding with a passenger, you know, you have to completely change up how you ride. In my
Yeah.
opinion, you really need to do right by whoever's riding with you and prioritize their safety.
exactly. Great point. All right, well, that's going to do it for us this evening. We appreciate everybody tuning in. If you could, please like and subscribe, especially on the YouTube channel, and follow our Facebook page. It really helps us out. I will go ahead and make a small announcement here. The streaming service that we use, StreamYard, has decided to hike the price up. So we are looking for a couple more sponsors for the show. If you guys have a local or you're somewhere around that watches the show with your business, we'd love to work with you. Looking to get about two more sponsors just to help offset that cost so we can keep providing great and awesome entertainment for y'all out there. Yeah. So thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.